Welcome to our world and your world of green matters. This week, doctors warn climate change threatens human health and a town burning for decades. But first, beetles topping the charts as survivors. 300 million years ago, dinosaurs walked the earth. So too did beetles. Still with us today, they've survived climate change, disease and natural disaster. Using DNA sequences and fossil records, an extensive new study has built a beetle family tree.
So this is really the first time that we're bringing together information on all major lineages of beetles. So beetles is a huge lineage, like a quarter of all species, living species that we know of, are beetles. And so this is the first time we really have a complete or comprehensive analysis of their evolutionary relationships and bring this, what was already in part known, like individual subgroups, to bring this all together in one complete picture.
More than 350,000 beetle species are documented, but scientists estimate millions remain undiscovered. Many of today's species existed in the Jurassic period. They've survived extreme conditions, frozen caves, aquatic environments, and arid deserts. This ability to evolve and adapt has ensured their survival.
Beetles are the most diverse group of organisms in the planet. So 1 in 5 types of living thing is a beetle. And one of the things that we can learn from Professor Vogler's work is the possible reasons for this enormous success. I mean, really, they are the success story of the animal kingdom. And if we can find out when they diversified from each other, then we can begin to understand why they're so successful.
Beetles are incredibly varied. This rhinoceros beetle can lift 850 times its own weight. For us, like lifting 7 double-decker buses. The Natural History Museum has a collection that runs into millions, but the fear is many undiscovered species, especially in remote tropical regions, may become extinct before they're found.
We have so many species, it's very difficult to even know what they are, let alone to protect them. So what we are now doing is, with these DNA methods, we expand this into virtually have sequences for all species ultimately. So what used to be done in taxonomy was like classical methods where people look at the gestalts and morphological features. We do this now with DNA techniques, and there are now high throughput techniques available that make that very easy and very realistic.
Understanding beetles is an important part of understanding the natural world, as learning about their evolution gives new insights into the origins of biodiversity. And with 300 million years already under their belt, beetles are way in front of the rest of us. Like most cities, Ghana's capital, Accra, has a problem dealing with the tons of plastic packaging that goes to waste every day. Only a tiny amount gets recycled, and much of it ends up littering the streets. But one local business has come up with a novel way to recycle the plastic, turning it into practical and decorative bags. The bags are gaining a lot of attention.
Oh, it's nice, yeah, it's nice. Nice bag.
Recently, Ghana's Black Stars traded their sports bags for trashy bags. These distinctive bags were made from discarded water and ice cream sachets, collected outside the stadium after the team's opening match against Guinea. These sachets were the most common plastic waste on the streets, but that's starting to change now. Every day, almost 100,000 of these tiny sachets are collected and delivered to a workshop in Medina, a neighbourhood in the eastern part of the city. Special care is taken to thoroughly wash and disinfect the sachets, which are then cut at each end and separated into piles. It's the first step in the process of making trashy bags.
We believe that this is one of the best ways to help deal with the environment. Also to educate people, to make people responsible for their trash, to let people know that it is their work. They have to take care of their environment. It's not about government or some organization, but then it is you, the person, who take care of your environment. So that's what makes it unique.
Trashy Bags is a thriving cottage industry, and orders are steadily increasing, growing the company from essentially a charitable organisation to one turning a small profit.
Well, I think our market for the bags is really abroad. You know, there's a great groundswell of interest now in products like this that you know, are good to the environment, eco-friendly products. We're actually going to be at a trade fair in the UK in a couple of weeks, and we know there's somebody selling these in the US now and having great success at trade fairs there with this idea.
Along with the orders, the workforce has grown too, a boost to a poor area where unemployment is rife. In just 3 months, it has expanded from a business employing 15 people to one now employing 300. 250 people go out and collect the sachets, and 50 people sew and assemble the bags. Trashy Bags come in all shapes and sizes: sports bags, handbags, shopping bags, messenger bags and backpacks. They're likely very appealing to overseas customers, but largely out of reach financially for most people in Ghana.
I would love Ghanaians to be the first people who use this bag, because the problem is here in Ghana. So if Ghanaians will use it, that's where our success will come. Africans are the only people that can solve their problems. There's nobody on this earth who will be able to solve African problems, because Africans know what problem they have, how the problem came, how they can solve the problem. That's what I believe.
By thinking creatively and intelligently about reusing plastic waste, Trashy Bags is trying to inspire people to care more about their environment and to set an example for generations to come. The Hong Kong Jockey Club has hosted many glamorous events, not least the 2008 Olympic Games equestrian events. 200 horses and 14 days of events equals a lot of excitement and a lot of manure, more than 400 tonnes. In the past, waste had been sent to landfill, but Beijing's Green Olympics required a better solution. Recently, the Jockey Club had begun a process of recycling its waste, so was already well prepared. The key players were a Hong Kong-based Australian company and a very diligent workforce of 80 million. Earthworms. The system proved to be cost-effective and efficient. The sunburst vermicompost process takes stable waste, manure, food waste and bedding and converts it into high-grade fertiliser. The waste is first sent to a recycling plant where it's inspected and mixed with water to filter out any toxic substances, such as heavy metals.
Once we accept that material, we bring it in and then we blend it with other wastes that we accept from other waste producers. Then it is processed through a water hydroprocessing process where the two are mixed together, which allows us to mix the materials up into a very fine mixture and allows us to mix it with oxygen or air. That water is then extracted from the solid mixture is extracted from the water. We allow that to mature for a few days, and then that material forms the feed or the basis of the earthworm process.
Earthworm waste sinks to the bottom of the beds and is collected every 3 to 4 days as organic fertiliser. Rich with nutrients that are readily absorbed by plants, it's widely used for organic farming, sporting fields and public lands in Hong Kong and overseas.
The way that we formulate that mixture to begin with before it goes to the earthworm process, that's one very unique part of the process. It is the only process that uses a water-based mixing process.
which allows it to remain odourless. All water that is used in our process is recovered and recycled on site and reused, so nothing escapes our site.
Recycling the waste costs the Jockey Club just 5% more than dumping it in Hong Kong's overstretched landfills.
The cost really hasn't come into it. We've been looking for many years, as I said, to recycle. I don't believe the club and myself believe that sending 100 tonne of stable waste per day to landfill is the right way to go.
With this down-to-earth recycling system, the Hong Kong Jockey Club appears to have backed a winner. It looks like a scene from The Terminator. But this is present-day Pennsylvania in the United States of America. For almost 46 years, underground fire has continually burned in what is the nation's most dangerous coal mine fire. In 1962, a burn-off at a rubbish dump spread, igniting a nearby coal seam. Since then, the fire has steadily fed on copious natural deposits of coal, its smoke drifting up into the atmosphere through fissures in the earth.
Currently the fire is about 350 acres in total area. That includes the fire fronts and the area behind the fronts where the fire's been burning for a number of years. In some places it can burn down to the mine pool, which is 350 to 400 feet deep. And that some places it can burn right at the surface.
A 1969 attempt to block the fire's progress failed and the burning continued. By 1982, the projected cost to put it out was $660 million US.
The fire itself is following the coal seam, which literally goes 400 or 500 feet underground. And the rock above the coal seam is very hard. So to blast the rock out and physically excavate the fire out is enormously expensive. There's just not enough money to deal with every fire in that fashion.
Instead, the government chose a cheaper option, to buy all the homes in the affected area and relocate the residents. Only 10 households rejected the offer. The remaining homes were demolished. The few residents left are reluctant to leave.
There were piles and piles of row houses, piles and piles of people all packed in on each other. And all around the town there were strippings, and strippings are just basically dirt, and there wasn't much of anything else. But nowadays in Centralia truth is we have deer, bear, tons and tons of turkey, groundhogs, chipmunks, squirrels, you name it. And I've always wanted a house in the woods, and now I have one.
But living conditions are far from ideal. Subsurface heat has intensified and spread. In 1979, the temperature of fuel in underground tanks in the town's petrol station soared to dangerous levels. Huge sinkholes continue to open up in the ground, and carbon monoxide steadily wafts into the air.
The steam brings gases with it. These gases can infiltrate into your basement. It doesn't mean every house has an equal opportunity to have gases infiltrate, but the probability is there, the risk is there. It's happened here in the past.
Still, some residents believe the hazards are overstated, and for a reason.
I think someone wants to get their hands on this coal under the borough. Because with us out, if they are successful in getting us out and emptying the town, remove all the people, there's nothing to stop someone from coming in and start mining the coal. And in essence, put the fire out in the process.
As the world battles to reduce its carbon emissions, Centralia's fire has implications for more than just the few remaining residents. The 13-kilometre coal seam could fuel the fire for another 250 years. At best, it will burn itself out in 100. For the past 30 years, Thailand's northern province of Lampang has provided a refuge for elephants. Too old, sick or crippled to work, the elephants retire to spend their last days comfortably. Under the Forest Industry Organisation, 30 elephants are cared for by 46 mahouts and veterinarians from the National Elephant Institute. Some of the residents are domesticated elephants, confiscated from illegal logging operators. Others were sent to the centre by their owners when they could no longer control them and they became a danger to their community. The elephants in the retirement scheme are allowed to roam freely in a nearby mountainous jungle area of about 170 square kilometres, but sick and maimed elephants are kept around the nursery centre. Most of the elderly elephants suffer from minor injuries. The most senior resident is 70 years old.
We are the last home for the elephants, and we accept every unwanted elephant. We take care of them until they die, and they don't have to do any more work.
Over the 30 years of the centre's operation, about 80 elephants have died in the camp. They are not forgotten. The cemetery marks each one of the dead.
We're alarmed every time when these elephants fall ill. We're always afraid that they'll die, and we call the vet to help. And we try as much as we can to keep them from getting sick.
Thailand revoked all its logging concessions in 1989, but some elephants still pull logs near the border with Myanmar, previously known as Burma. The area is littered with unexploded landmines, which frequently injure the elephants. For those animals that have suffered injury, cruelty, or just plain hard work, in retirement at least they can enjoy peace, quiet, and plenty of food. While the effects of environmental change are clearly visible with weather extremes and increasing natural disasters, few people are aware of the risks to human health. A meeting of doctors at the Royal College of Physicians in the UK raised serious alarms about the future of humanity. The doctors warned that climate change now poses a bigger threat than smoking, alcohol, and obesity.
The emphasis on the effect of climate change has very much been on the environment, on animals, but actually the biggest and most immediate threat is to health. Changing patterns of disease, malaria moving into northern Europe, perhaps even into Britain, but even bigger effects will be those that we see from reduction in water supplies, droughts, effect on food supplies, famine, floods, this unstable climate change, hurricanes and so on disrupting medical services. The list is endless, really.
The conference aimed to educate doctors about the wider health problems. In turn, doctors could encourage patients to change their lifestyles and adopt greener ways of living. But experts stressed the need for urgency.
The worries have grown in terms of the speed and gravity of the threat. So what we've realised in the last few years is that this is not something that will potentially affect us maybe in a few hundred years, but that will affect us and is likely to pose a threat to the lives of our children within the next 40 years or so. So we're looking at deaths affecting us and our families now, and I think that's what's changed and has energised those individuals.
Scientists have warned that 50% of the world's species could be extinct within a few decades. Dr. Montgomery warned that humans should not believe they are safe from such a fate. He warned that as crops fail due to climate change and water shortages, there will be starvation and disease, leading to economic collapse, mass migrations, and war. He urged that every individual has to take action, and it has to be now.
We have to act immediately, and it has to be hard and fast. So we've probably got little less than 5 years to have got in place the major changes that we need to make to lower carbon. Because carbon hangs around for a very long time. A fifth of it's still there 1,000 years from now. So even if you stop making the CO2 now, what we've produced is still going to be producing warming. So we don't have 50 years to get the solution in place. It's got to happen within the next 60 months or so. In the end, we're going to need better technologies, carbon capture and storage from power stations and so forth. We're going to need economic frameworks, carbon trading. But none of those can happen quickly enough. The first thing has to be individual action, because every single person that's watching this report can lower their carbon footprint by 1/3 overnight. We can all do that. And unless we do, we're doomed, because the other things will not have time to come online.
There is still time to act. By taking simple steps at home or in the workplace, everyone can reduce their carbon footprint. Reducing fuel, energy and waste helps cut carbon emissions. So too does choosing food and products that originate closer to us and are fuel and energy efficient to produce. Being informed is the most important first step we can take. But if action is not taken on a global scale, according to these experts, the human race could become the first species to document its own extinction. Join us again when we bring you more of what matters to keep our world green.